What's going on, guys? I hope everybody's having a good Wednesday so far. In this video, we're going to be making these spiked cubes that you can see going back and forth here in this room. I think this is a very common thing in a roguelike game where there's like cubes that go back and forth, and if you walk into one of them, you die. So the first thing you need to do is you need to go into Blender. This is free software you can download from the internet to make models for your game. And if you press, so there should be a cube there by default. And if you just press tab on the keyboard, you can go into edit mode. We're just going to select the top vertices and just move them down. Then you can select the bottom vertices, press Alt-Z to get the X-ray mode, and press Alt-Z again to get out of X-ray mode. And you can scale this, press S, and then just drag this. This will be like kind of like the angle. Then we will go select all of the lines, I guess, in it. And you can press Control-B to bevel them a little bit. So there's like a rounded edge to this. And then if you go into face select mode, you can select these faces, and then you can press Alt-E and extrude them along the normal, and you can make armor. It's kind of like an armory thing, right? And then if you set the transform pivot point to the individual origins, you can press S and scale this down if you want to. So you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, whatever you want to. And yeah, so that's pretty much how I made the base of the object. Then we're going to press Shift right click in the middle on one of these sides. Press Shift A and click Mesh Cylinder. Press RX90. And oh crap, sorry. First, when you put this in, you actually need to just change it. So add the cylinder at the bottom left here. Just click 12 for the vertices so that it's not as like rounded. It doesn't need to be that rounded. We have a very low detail game. Press RY90. Oh my god, this is the same mistake that I just made. RX90. And then you can press tab to go into edit mode before you scale it down. That way you don't have to apply the transforms. And you can select this end face, press G and Y to move it out, and then S to scale it down into a point. And then you can press L on this and press 7 to get a top view, Shift D and then X to move this, and then Shift D and X again to move this again. And try to evenly space these. And then you can press L on these to select it. So if you click off, you can select the individual like little things, and then you can press G and Y. Sorry, G, Y. Change this to median point again. G, Y. Oh, that is working. Okay. So yeah, so you just want to move these in so that the middle spike is out a little bit more. And from a top view, I think this looks pretty good. And then you can just Shift D this object and just move it up here, RZ180, and then just move these in here too. Shift D again, move these over here, RX90, and over here actually, and then Shift D, RZ180, and then just move these here. Then we're going to take all of these and press Control J. I'm just holding Control to select them, like to add to the selection. And it looks like these top ones are just floating in outer space. So just go into edit mode, press L to select each one of these, and make sure you have 7 selected on your, so you have the top down view, and just move them inside of the object. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take these, press F2 and rename them to spikes. And then we want to Shift D to duplicate them and right click. And we'll just rename this to Spike Cutter. You can press tab on your keyboard to go into edit mode, press A to select everything. Make sure this is on individual origins, and then scale these so they're just slightly bigger, okay? And then if you tab out of this, you can take your spike cutter, then Shift select your main object, and then press Control Shift B and do a brush boolean, which will cut holes in this. If you don't have this option, you can go to Edit Preferences, and then go to your add-ons, and it's called the Bool tool. So you need to enable the Bool tool if you want to be able to do this. It just cuts holes in it. It's not even really necessary. From the top down view, you can't really see this anyway, so it's not a big deal. And you're probably going to be using the one in my game anyway. You're probably not even going to be using this one. But the last thing you want to do is select everything in Shade Smooth by Angle and delete this spike cutter. And, oh, sorry, you gotta apply material to this. So select the spikes, create a new material. You could just call this spike. And we'll just select the material preview here at the top and just turn the metallic to full. And then the main material, we'll just click new and we'll just type in main. And again, metallic to full, and you could just make this a little bit darker if you want to. And then if you press tab, you can select these faces that are quote unquote armor. And then you can go to select more or less and click more. I've set this up to be my minus key, but I don't think you'll have that. And then you can click this little plus button on the right for the material and click a new and just call this armor material. And then press assign. And again, turn the metallic to full. And then just make it a little bit darker, but not as dark as like the crevices. So that's too dark. So like maybe like that. And I think I want the outside to be more dark and then the inside to be lighter. I think that's what I have in the other one. So just switch these around. So the main one can become whiter and the armor can become darker. Okay, so that's pretty much all I did to make this. So then you can go File, Export, FBX, and then just make sure you put it in somewhere where you can find it. You can name it Spikes. And then at the bottom here under Apply Scalings, do FBX Unit Scale and turn off baking the animation. You can click Export here, and then in Unity, you can drag this Spikes file into your project at the bottom. Then from there, you can drag it into the scene. And then if you click on it, you can click this little locky button so that it scales correctly, and you can make it bigger. And you can see this looks almost identical to what I have. I spent a little bit longer making mine. This is just a very quick tutorial. I'm sure that if you're going to make a spike for your game, you'll just spend a little bit longer. The other thing I did to this was I added the outline script to it. So this just puts an outline around the object. And then I made it black. And I think I just adjusted like the size of the outline. It adds a lot to it. It makes it look more cartoony and more gamey, I guess. And then the other thing I did was on mine, you can see that I have like this brushed metal material on the top. So I downloaded this normal map from the internet, right? And if you take this normal map, you can create a material like this, and we'll just call this brushed metal material. And you can actually just drag the normal map into the normal map slot inside of this. And then if you go on your material for the spike that you have, which is still a prefab, you can go into the materials here, and where it says armor material, we're just going to drop this brushed metal material there. So armor material, apply. This is because we didn't apply the UV map to the object. So back in Blender, if you click on all of the objects, you can go into the UV editing tab, and you can press A to select everything, and just press U on your keyboard and do Smart UV Project and press OK. This will actually, so that it knows where to put this. The other thing that you could do is you could create seams for this so that the armor has seams around it. And we're just not going to do that right now, but you could look that up if you want to. You could get a better normal map than the auto-generated one. So let's go ahead and export this again, and we will call this Spike Still. And back in Unity, if you just delete the one that you've imported, you can just drag this new one where it was. And so you can see that applied now. So in the brush material, this is just a little bit too strong. So you could do like maybe 0.2 or something, or let's just go to the game view. And this is too dark, so we can just do this, make it less smooth so it's not so reflecty. And you can see that this is the same thing. The UV map affects the direction of the brush material. So like if you rotate like the square around, so let's go back here for a second so I can show you. So this square, for example, if we wanted it to be facing the other way, we could rotate this square so that it's facing the other direction. And then if we export it again, it will change it inside of Unity. So like if we re-exported it, it would change it. I don't think it really matters. It could be brushed in either way. So honestly, I think this one looks just as good as this one. I think for the main one, I might actually want to lower the normal amount. In the main one, I actually used a shader to accomplish this. So I have this rough metal shader, and it just goes directly into the normal. But anyway, just do it in the main material. You can just drag it. So you just drag it into the normal map slot. 0.2 actually looks a lot better. So I'm just going to take my actual cubes in the scene view, and I'm going to put this new brushed material onto these cubes. But yeah, I mean, yeah, because especially since it's like a cartoony game, it doesn't make sense to not. And then the other thing you have to do is in your spike, you need to add a box collider. So then I also made this. Oh, sorry. Let me add outline again so that it has that. I added this in the play mode so it doesn't stay afterwards. And you can't see this in the scene view. You can only see this when you're actually running the game. So I created this script called the spike script, and we're going to go over what that does now. Okay, so this is the spike script. So there's two transforms that are available as the inputs for the spike script. And so transform A will be the point that it starts at, and transform B will be the point that it's going to. So if you look at the room that I already have for the spikes, you can see that I have a point A and a point B that are just empty game objects. They have I think I put a sphere here, and so that if you wanted to edit where they are, you can do that. So let's do that for this cube that we've just added. So this spike cube that we just added, we're just going to move it over here so that it's out of the way for right now. And we're going to add 2 points. So if we right click in this, we can, actually, you have to make this outside of the spikes because when this moves, it will affect where the positions are. So let's just right click and we'll create a sphere. And we will just drag this outside of the spike, and we're just going to put this way down here. And then what we can do is we will press Control D to duplicate it, and we'll put the other one up here. Just like that. So in our spike, then we can take these two spheres that we just put there, and we will have a start point and an end point. So ideally, you would put one of these at the start point, preferably the first one, which is this one, so that they kind of align. All right. And so let's go back into the script. The hit effect, when it hits the wall, it plays this effect. We're going to, I'm going to drag in the effect that I have actually. So let's do that. So it's this one right here. And actually, okay, so we need to drag this onto this spike. Like this. Reset the transform. And let's just click play. Oh, it shakes the whole screen. We need to shrink that down. What is it in this? 0.1. Okay, so we'll just do that here. So just change this to 0.1. You're not going to have this yet. I'm going to go over how to make this afterwards, but I just need to add it right now so you can see this working. So this needs to be this. And the move speed, I think I set to something much higher. Yeah, 300. So let's change ours to 300. Okay, so this is the script. So these are the points, like where it's going to go between. So point A and point B is like the start point and the end point. It will go back and forth between the two. This is the effect that plays when it hits the wall. This is the speed at which it moves. These are private variables that we're just using for the rest of the code. So when it starts, it adds the rigid body to this variable so that we can reuse it. It sets the target position to position B. It generates a move speed at random. So even though we have this as public, if you change the move speed, it's not going to affect it right now. It is doing a random between these two numbers. So if the wait timer is greater than 0, it will subtract the current time from the wait timer, and it will return. So when it's waiting, like when it's at the wall, it will return and won't go. So like when you get to the wall, because when it moves to the wall, when it actually gets there, there's a wait time of 0.5 seconds. So this will make it wait when it gets to the wall until the wait timer is over. So like you could change this number to be a higher number and it will stop at like when it gets to the edge of the wall here, like when it gets here. Right now it will stop for 0.5 seconds, but you could change that to be more if you want. That's just this variable here. It's private. This could actually probably be public so that you're able to change it if you want to. Yeah, so then we're just moving towards the position using this code with fixed delta time. This is important because if your frame rate is different, it will probably know that if you've been watching my series already. But if the distance is less than 0.1, okay, so it's going towards the position. Vector3.distance actually checks the distance between the positions. You don't want to check if they're equal because it will never actually be equal. It's kind of glitchy where if you try to just see if like this position equals this position, this is a way better way of doing this. so that it's not so glitchy. And then if it is true, then it will play the hit effect, and then it will change the direction that it's going, and it will set the wait time to the wait time, or the wait timer to the wait time, so that this will happen. So it won't do anything for 0.5 seconds. And then when we collide, so on the collision enter, if it hits our character, which is our stick wizard, we run the heart script to take damage. And right now it's doing 20 damage. So no matter how much health you have or what you've done in the game, you will die immediately. I really like making the game hard. So I don't want it so that you can just, if you go into this room, you should be like, oh my God, I'm in this room, I'm probably going to die. You know, like that's kind of the vibe that I'm going for. My game's going to be extremely hard to win. But yeah, so I mean, this is pretty much it for this script. It's pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. I'm going to post this entire script in the description of the video, separate from the project. So if you just want to download the script, you're able to do that. And now we need to make this visual effect. Okay, so to get this effect that we're looking for, the first thing you need to do is you need to make the shader that actually does this. So if we look at the game, I'm just going to show you this first and then we'll make it. So if you're looking at this, we have this shader graph at the bottom right here with a hit distortion amount. And you can distort the view of the camera so that it like blurs out the object. So we just want this to be a relatively low number. I'm just using 0.0013 here. And if you look, if we start this out at really small and we expand this, you can see it looks like it hits the wall and is shaking, right? So in my current visual effect, I'm using a sphere for this, but I think I'm about to change it to a cylinder instead. So if we look at this cylinder, basically what we've done is, let me just copy this and I'll paste it and I'll make another one. I'll just drag this one over here. And I'll just put this random material on it, whatever. So you can see that I've made this sphere or cylinder really thin. Like it just needs to be a circle type object that expands as it hits the thing. And it would actually be better if we modeled an object in Blender where we cut out the middle so that it's like a ring. You could do that if you want to. I'm not going to do that. Or you could make a torus, and you could use a torus for this if you want to. A torus is like a donut shaped object. That could be really cool as well. Let's go into the shader. So to make the shader, if you right click at the bottom somewhere, you can create a shader graph. It's going to be a lit shader graph. And then after you do that, you can double click on it and you can open it. If you right click inside of this, you can add the nodes that you see. So we have the screen position being added with this hit distortion variable. So to add a variable, you just click the blackboard here and you can click the plus button and make a float. And then you can drag this in just like that. Okay, the variables are what you're able to edit when you're actually messing with it. So if we go back to the scene view and we click on the cylinders material, which is this, you can see that this is a variable that we're able to edit. I've also made it a slider bar. So if you click on this after you've added it, you can see that the mode is set to slider and there's a number between 0 and 1. So obviously after 1, it's completely black. It doesn't. So 0 is completely normal and then 1 is completely black and it will distort between the two. So let me just minimize these things. And this is actually unlit. It's not lit. So in this dropdown, just copy these settings. We also don't want it to accept shadows or cast shadows. It's not affected by light, so use unlit and just copy these settings if you can. The most important thing is at the bottom here, you have to select supports via VFX graph because we're going to be using VFX graph, so you have to enable this. And then, yeah, so the screen position goes into a lerp node with this distortion amount that we're adding. So we're using 0.013. And then this is getting put into the scene color, which is like the color what the camera sees. And then it's going into the base color. And we're adding a noise to this so that it distorts what we're seeing. This number will be how much, like how grainy or how fine the distortion is. 50 is a really good number. If you make this number smaller, the distortion, like little circles, I'll just show you. Hang on. Let's just change this to 1 for a second, or 15. So see how this becomes more zoomed in? And then if you do 500, it's more zoomed out. That's the same thing that will happen on the actual shader itself. So after you've made this shader, you can right click the shader at the bottom, which I've called mine hip blur shader, but you can call it whatever you want to. And then you could right click it and create a material. And that's how I made this material, right? And then we just need to put this into a visual effect graph. So to make a visual effect graph, if you right click at the bottom, you can create a visual effect graph, and we'll just call this hit blur tutorial. And if you don't see that option, it could be because you have visual effect graph disabled. So if you go to window at the top, you can go to the package manager, change this to Unity registry, and just type in the word visual and search up the visual effect graph. Make sure you just click install here. And then after you've installed it, you should see that option. Let's drag the hit blur tutorial into the scene, and we'll just double click on it so that we can find it. So looks like it's starting right here. Let's drag it away from the origin. And if we double click on the edit button here, we can go into the actual visual effect graph. And this is where we're actually going to change the settings. So I've just moved the effect graph over top of one of these spiky things so you can see it better. And we're going to change the constant spawn rate. So you can delete this and then just press spacebar and type in burst. We're just going to do a single burst. We're just going to do one particle for now. We could do 3 afterwards. So let's just set the capacity to 3. So it could be like 3 rings of like the kind of like the shockwave explosion kind of thing. We don't want a velocity. We don't want the lifetime to be random. So you can just turn off the random for that. And we just want this to be maybe 0.5 seconds. A shockwave is not very long. And then in the output particle quad, we want to delete this. We don't actually want that. We want this to be a mesh. And we're going to create a cylinder similar to the one that we just made in our demo. So if you click on the mesh, you can type in cylinder. And then at the bottom, make sure you choose the one that says Unity Engine Mesh and not one of the other cylinders that we have already. You could press space here and set size over life. And click on the graph thing and just change it to the second option so that it starts small and gets bigger over the lifetime of the particle. We're going to make this all the way up to 2. So just like that. So it will become double the size over the lifetime of the particle. So it starts at 0 and it becomes the full size and then double the size. We want to set the scale of the particle the exact same way that we set the scale for the cylinder. So if you click on the cylinder, you can see we made 24 on the X, 24 on the Z, and 0.1 on or 0.86 on the Y. So we're just going to copy these numbers. So 24.6 and then 24.6 here as well. And then you could just leave this at 1 or do 0.9. It doesn't matter. It's not really going to make a big difference anyway. And then what we want to do is we want to apply the shader graph that we made. So if you click on this little thing beside this, you can put the hit blur shader. This is the shader that we just made, okay? We just want to change this down to like 0.13 or something. You could put this at whatever you want to realistically. But you can see when this hits, look at this little wave that it's making. So this is really cool for like a little shockwave effect. And it could maybe be a little bit faster than that. So to change how fast it goes, that'll just be the lifetime. So maybe 0.3 seconds. So when it hits the wall, this is the effect that will play. And I think I like this one actually better than the one that I had. And you can adjust this amount if you want to. So the number, probably a maximum of like, this makes it completely distorted so you don't even see the object at all. And the higher number you go, it will go all the way to like black if you do 1. Or completely invisible at 1 anyway. So let's just set this to like 0.17 seems to work. Again, the higher the number, the more distortion there is. So the less you'll see the actual resemblance of the object. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the effect. So you can go ahead and drag this onto your spike that we made. So instead of this hit blur that we just made, you could put this one there. And you just want to make this into a prefab. So you can just drag this at the bottom. And then you can, on your spike script, you'll drag this one that we just made into this. So now if we run this, you should see that this spike goes back and forth between the two things. And when it hits the wall, oh shit, it's not moving. There's no rigid body. So on your spike, you need to add a rigid body. And you just want to lock this on the rotation so it doesn't rotate. And the y-axis, it's not going to go up or down like, up or down in the scene. So you could do that. And we'll just move this to the top and we can run it. And there we go. So let's try to go past this one. So this is obviously way too big. And you can see it's slowing down when it gets to the end because the box colliders are hitting each other. So, and it's also not playing the effect. So let's just check. So when we copy this onto this, it's set the size to be like 0.1 or whatever, but we don't actually want that. So let's rotate this around and we'll... Oh, okay. So let's reset this transform so it's directly on top of it. Let's just hit play so we can see it. And that's way too large. So we'll just set this to like 0.1 across the board. And we need to move this up so it's above it so you can see it. And this is the Hitler tutorial. So what does that look like in the game view? Let me just move the camera down so we can see it. Okay, we can't see it from here. Hang on, let's just go back here. Let's make this slightly bigger. So lock these and just change it to like 0.2 maybe, so it's like larger. Nah, 0.15 or 1.3 or something. Hang on, let's run this. Okay, and the other thing we want to do is we just want to take this entire spike and just like shrink it down a little bit so it's not so massive. It's going through the wall right now, which we don't really want. You can see that my spikes that are in between the walls are smaller. So let's just do like that or something so it's not so big. And then let's click play on this again and make sure it makes sense. Yeah, and I think just slightly bigger, maybe like 0.16 or something. Okay, so let's run this again and see what happens. Oh, I died. Shit. Okay. So you can see it's still going into the wall. Okay, so let's click this and we will freeze X and no, you can't do that because we're using that for the position. Okay, so it's having trouble getting to the actual cylinder, like the actual point. Let me just click on this. I think I know what the problem is. It's because the box collider is wrong. So we need the box collider to actually resemble the shape of the object. So it's not making it right away because it's way too big. So let's just make this larger and then it can go up like this. And then if you click this, you can get the isometric view and it's better for scaling things so they're exactly around an object. And let's go back. So this will probably fix it. And then this cylinder or this sphere should be a little bit away from the wall. And then this sphere could also be maybe a little bit more away from the wall. This would be the center of the object for it to get there. So we want the center of this to go there. So let's just run this again and see if it works now. Okay, and we do want the shockwave to be bigger. So let's just make this like 0.2. 0.5. Okay, we're just gonna turn off. Let's lower this down. We're just gonna turn off these other ones because they're shaking the screen too, and it's affecting how it looks right now. So because we would have these all be uniform. So let's go ahead and disable these ones, and we'll just have this one. So in the scene view, this needs to be faster because it's what the fuck is going on there? It's like in the middle, it's applying it again. It's like right here. There's oh, that's our other thing that we already had. So we have this cylinder still here. That's why it looks stupid. So okay, so let's get out of this. Let's disable these 3 spikes for the room. And then let's get rid of these two spheres that we, sorry, not the spheres, the cylinder that we were using to test the blur thing is still there. That's why it's looking so weird. So then we have that. This should also not play when it loads. So we need to go into the hit blur tutorial, and instead of having the initial event name on play, we'll just turn this off. We only want this to play when it hits the wall. And then we want this size to be, let me just hit play on this again. I feel like it could be like 0.25 or something. So it's a little bit larger. So like it makes more sense. And I think the blur amount needs to be a little bit less than that. So instead of it being 0.17, let's just do 0.10. And we'll save this, and then we can just hit play on this again. So it's not like it's pushing the object over in the blur, and it kind of looks weird. So let's just do it like that. And then the time for this actually just needs to be a little bit less, so maybe 0.2, so it goes faster. Okay, let's run this again and see. Okay, so we have a problem here. It's playing this before it actually gets to the thing. It looks like it's playing it like it's playing it already, but it's not even close to this. So let me just look at the code for a second. So the distance is okay. So I did a lot of fixing off camera, and it turns out, so the thing you need to do is move this section above this section so that this happens first, and then it does the check. What was happening is this was checking first and then moving it, and then like it would happen multiple times, and that's why it was doing this. So if you just move this little section above this check, then it works. So you can see now that when it actually hits the wall, that's the only time it's actually playing the effect. I think this effect looks pretty cool, and it works well with the outline. So that there's the outline script that we added to this. You can see that the outline is kind of moving with this because of like the blur. I think this effect looks really awesome. It might be better if you did a triple effect. So in the hit blur visual effect, right here, you could set the count to be 1 and then set the delay, count to 3 and then set the delay to like 0.2. That would make it happen like multiple times in a row. But then you would have to, because this will only play it once because it's a single burst, you could add a periodic burst and set it to 3. So, let's just not. This is already too long of a video. You could make it do a triple shockwave instead of a single one. I don't think that it spends long enough at the wall to bother with that, but that would especially be good if you added a torus instead of using a cylinder. Again, I just need to make this video shorter, so that's going to be it for the day. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to see anything specific or there's anything that I didn't cover, you can always leave a comment in the comments of the video, and I hope I will see you guys in the next one.